Hi, this is Mark. Congratulations. You have found this amazingly awesome show. Chances are you're listening to it right now on whether it's iTunes or Stitcher Radio or some other mobile app that allows you to stream this amazingly awesome show to your ear holes. And I can't stress how awesomely amazing this show really is. But did you know that you can also catch the latest episode of this show on the Tangibound Network? That's right. Go check out tangiboundnetwork.com. You can look them up and you can listen to it right there. It's even mobile friendly. What more could you ask for? Which means you can pull it up on your iPhone or your Android, even your Windows phone. Yeah, who has one of those? But still, point remains, you can do it. You can do it. Check it out, tangiboundnetwork.com. Listen to this show, the latest episode, every time. Check it out.
Welcome to the Wicked Radio Network.
Life sucks to the last drop. Are you gonna blow your head off? Take good aim and don't forget to duck. Life sucks every Monday and all the way to Sunday, but I wouldn't have it any other way. I don't care how you're doing, what's up or how's it hanging. I'd like to buy this world one last drink. Life sucks all of the time, so stick it up your sunshine, and then you'll see the clouds every day. And then you'll see the clouds every day. And then you'll see the clouds every day.
Welcome to the Crazy Life, everybody. Welcome to all the new listeners, as well as our fellow listeners who have been with us for, I just found out, almost a year, which is kind of crazy. So another 4 more episodes, so another month, and we reached the 52 mark. Woo-hoo!
Mm-hmm.
Yay!
And there was much rejoicing. Yay!
Well, that being said, welcome to my 2 co-hosts. We got Bryan and Henno again this week. Yay!
And there was even more rejoicing. Yay!
Goodness.
Mm-hmm.
And I know I'm going to get completely destroyed on this, but there's much rejoicing is from oh my god, it just left me. Monty Python, correct?
Yes.
Thank you. All right. Just making sure.
Nice job.
Yep.
Gotta get my references right here.
Man, I'm like a bobblehead with the judgment tonight.
It's going all over the place, let me tell you.
It's the only reason I ever wanted a bobblehead of myself was, because just a big head of me, it's just so appropriate. Plus, then it just, anytime I want, I can just judge people and just tap the dang thing and just hold it in front of them. It's like.
And for those of you who have not seen Bryan, just Stewie. There you go.
Just giant head. No, my head's not shaped like a football or something. I have a decent shaped head at least. Yeah.
I'm talking proportions more than,
all
shape.
Right.
There you go.
That'd be really odd if I had a head shaped like that.
I know. You think you would have, all sorts of issues. Yeah.
Yeah, neck problems, all that kind of stuff. Yeah.
Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
If you could carry his head straight up. But
yeah.
Anyways, completely derailed. So how was your weeks?
Henno's turn.
First.
Or Jen's turn if we want to completely.
Yeah, actually, if we want to really turn it around,
Yeah.
you start. For
Yeah.
Me start.
Yeah.
Jeez. I'm doing pretty good. It was a pretty darn good week. got some good news from work, which is cool. Yeah, I've been training a couple people, keeping my stuff together. Holding it down, holding down the fort. Trying to even out a bit. Been working on that this week, and yeah, it's going pretty good. I did find out something that I didn't realize, but I guess I sigh a lot. So, and I know I didn't realize I sigh a lot, but I guess I sigh a lot, especially in times of frustration and overwhelmment and stuff like that. And I've just for the longest time just naturally do it. It's become quite, breathing is becoming part of my lexicon of go-tos when I'm feeling overwhelmed or stressed out or whatever. I just take deep breaths in and out. And people were perceiving that as me being irritated and frustrated, but it was actually me like centering myself and focusing.
Yeah.
And so I kind of had to give a little explanation, like, oh no, that's not me sighing. That's me breathing with intent.
Right.
Is what I call it.
Nice.
Yeah. I said, that's just me breathing with intent. And they're like, oh, that makes so much more sense. And so we had a little miscommunication, but it just reminded me again of the nonverbals that are so important and keeping that communication open.
Well, something else to consider is, and this was something that was brought to my attention, is that a lot of times people with anxiety have a habit of not breathing correctly when they're in moments of anxiety. And basically what happens is you hold your breath. That's part of why you stay anxious. And while you're holding your breath, basically you're having, and then when you kind of do breathe again or remember to breathe or force yourself to breathe, you kind of sigh because you start taking deep breaths essentially. So it could be something for you to, make sure when things do kind of anxiety levels start to raise, or if you're going into an anxious, something that will make you anxious or could make you anxious, make sure you basically, as you're walking in, instead, not just left foot, right foot, but also, inhale, exhale, because as we've said plenty of times, as silly as it sounds, it's really simple to not stop breathing, but to alter your breathing, without meaning to.
Yeah. And that's and I didn't realize it. And someone, was misreading that. And, Jimmy, she did realize that I was getting frustrated and stuff, and we had a very adult talk about it and all that good jazz, which was really cool. But kind of an aha I consider it a win for the week for me, is there was a situation where I got frustrated, but I held my cool. I held myself together, and I didn't apologize for being me. So often that someone gets, we have a communication between two people, and you end up apologizing for things that you didn't necessarily are sorry for, just because you feel that it's the opportunity and the need for an apology is laying out there, so you just automatically give it. Didn't fall into that trap.
Yeah.
I didn't do it. I didn't apologize unnecessarily. And looking back on it, I was very proud of myself because I took a position of leadership and authority, and I stood my ground behind what I believed in. And I acted very fairly, and there was nothing in there that I felt I needed to apologize for. So I didn't.
Yeah. And if there is, realistically, that the other person will tell you or should tell you, and then you can decide at that point, or HR will help you decide at that point if you do need to apologize.
Right.
That's funny.
Yeah.
Exactly. And it is very interesting navigating through this culture because it is a very male dominated culture that I'm in. And it's very interesting because it focuses less on the little stuff, little interpersonal communications, and more on the bigger picture, and more of the analytics of it. And so being a woman in that arena, I have to make sure when I'm communicating that I'm communicating on more analytical stuff and using data more and less on the soft skills and more on the harder skills.
Yeah.
So it's definitely more interesting trying to maneuver through that battlefield, but it's going good. It's I had a much better week than I think last week when I kind of went on my own little rant of sorts. But
fair enough.
Yeah.
Cool. Well, it's good because, as you're doing, if you're taking leadership roles on any job, but, especially as you're growing and learning, with new roles, new people, adjusting to it, you're going to be, you're going to have to be kind of nimbly bimbly about everything, because you don't know necessarily, what each week's going to throw at you. So until you kind of hit that, till it's a routine, you're just going to have to be at the ready, almost in a fight or flight mentality until it becomes routine, and
it really, it's a different position for me to be in as a position of quiet authority versus I always defer, especially to strong personalities. I've always deferred to strong personalities. And this is the first time that I'm pushing myself and out of that comfort zone. It's like, no, I'm not going to defer to a stronger personality. I'm going to stand my ground and believe in myself and believe in where I'm coming from and believe in my position and stand by my position.
Right. Now, did the end of this, at the very end of it, did it go, so what you gonna do, brother, when...
Yeah, I pretty much, we both stood up. I started ripping my shirt and going,
you gotta be careful with that. That can get you, in trouble.
Oh, no, I had my Hulkamania t-shirt underneath.
Okay. All right, that's fine.
So okay. I'm ripping my work shirt for the Hulkamania shirt to come out.
Okay. So you're the face in this one. You're not going Hollywood Hogan with, going the heel gimmick. I get you.
No, it's like I could ever be a heel.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. Every video game where it's you can play good, bad, or down the middle, and you're like, I'm all the way good.
My Halo has a Halo. And
like in Fable, when you play all the way good, your character like glows, and it's like, geez, I have to wear sunglasses to watch you play. Meanwhile, mine's walking around and the gates of hell are opening on the ground as I'm walking around.
All the animals are following and tweeting behind me.
Yeah.
I can't be bad even in a video game.
Yep.
That's not going to happen.
Right.
So, anyways, that was my week. How about you guys? Now you have to go.
No, I don't.
Yeah. You can still defer. Yeah, actually, I found out that my last week's "Do you know who I am?" actually ended up being the right thing to do.
Oh, yeah! I love it when narcissism wins. I mean, hey.
It turned out that this guy is actually a helper for a very well-known family in national politics. So I won't say who it is, but they're a name that everybody would know, and also in food products, which is where they made their money.
Oh, I know who it is right now.
What's that?
I said I know who it is right now.
Yeah. So they
I don't.
The catalogs people, I know.
Obviously.
No.
I can give you 57 hints.
That's exactly who I was going to guess.
So evidently, so they have a personal assistant that my our concierge Sean has always worked with. They're friends. You know, everything's on the level, and this guy's just kind of appeared over the last year. Well, I guess the Cindy had called Sean over the weekend and said, "Hey, you know, what's going on here?" Because the guy totally tried to throw us under the bus. And so I am so glad that I acted with confidence.
Yeah.
You know, I had some intuition on this evidently, and you know, and it's still a little hard. It's just not in my nature to do that, but I'm glad I did. Because that was my main point was, you know what, I want to appear that I know what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
And I don't want to be like a bully about it, but I don't want some Yahoo to push me around, you know?
Yeah.
But he went around and tried to say that we were trying to cover stuff up, basically. And Cindy was like, hey, what's going on? And Sean's like, no. So, and I ended up in the end, even though I postured a little bit, I did in the end compromise and say, hey, I'm going to go take a look at this. I'll make sure that we do our due diligence, you know, and everything turned out to be great and, you know, looked pretty good, but it was fun to get that kind of around the bout and go, okay, I'll have to, even though it's still not really comfortable for me, I'm going to have to accept it that this was meant to be this way. You know, that I had some sort of a gut react. I don't do that. That's why I think it was so weird for me. That
it really is for some people. There's a lot of people who don't, like I really don't do that well. Over on like Salty Language and stuff, Tony and I do that a lot. Like we'll throw it out there like we're the biggest egotist in the world.
Yeah.
And I don't do the do you know who I am kind of mentality well. Like, if I'm right, good luck trying to get me down off of that high horse. But otherwise, you know, like if I know I'm right, oh man, I am a jerk. And I know it. But it's one of those, or can be. I'm not always, but I can be. But otherwise, man, I do not like going into that place. I'm very similar to you. Like even if I know I'm right, I don't like going into that. But sometimes I'm just like, nope, I'm not budging, and I'm just gonna remind you that basically like, do you know who I am? I've been here for this long, you know.
Yeah, like, and that just like, that it's like you were talking about, Jen, is there's a time for when you do have to step up a little bit and you know, have some confidence and play the game at that level.
Yep.
And I don't always want to do it. I'd prefer, you know, my goal is I'd rather be the humble rock star these days.
Right. Every once in a while, Dre had to step up and drop an album just to remind everybody.
Yeah.
So that, you know, it was just kind of fun to at least get that, like, okay, you know, this guy was not, you know, he was not playing on the level to begin with. He was looking to get us in some way. And so I was, you know, I'm kind of glad that I had some intuition on that. So, and, you know, not that it's a big deal, but he backed down, you know, and that's like, okay, that's, you know, that's fine.
Now you can, next time you see him, you like, you know, like make that shoulder move to him and be like, that's what I thought.
Funny because he came in at the beginning of this week and he had a whole different attitude.
Yeah. Yeah.
He was trying to be all chummy and friendly with everybody. And it's like, yeah, you walked in and pissed some people off right off the bat, dude.
Yeah.
You know, that's not the way to do it. You know, it's like we've basically what it comes down to is we've given him no reason to feel that way. If we'd given him a reason, that's another thing, but we hadn't. So yeah, it's kind of fun. It's just you're telling your story reminded me of that. I was like, oh yeah. But I finally on Thursday. I tried to go to the gym after work. It lasted like 15 minutes on a treadmill and was like, I'm gonna die. I mean, it was bad. It was really bad. And so on Friday, you know, I was supposed to go to my men's meeting on Thursday night, and I got out of the gym, and I'm like, I'm gonna hurl. So I just went home and relaxed, and Friday I felt like hot garbage all day, and it was becoming a definite sinus infection. Now it's like, because I don't want to run in and be like, hey, give me antibiotics, you know, for everything. It's like some stuff's viral, some stuff, you know, and
but there's a difference though. Like, and you've had enough of them, I've had enough of them that like, you can tell a difference. Like sometimes you get those and you're like, I'm just a couple days from now I'll feel okay. Like I'm going through it because our weather's changing again. You know, like that giant, I forgot what they were calling it, where like one half of the country was a high pressure system, the other half was a low, and now it's broke and it's crushing my sinuses the last 2 days. So it's like, 2-3 days, I'll be okay. You know, I can feel that, but it's like when you start getting like the fever and the feeling like hot garbage, it's like, it's probably a little more than, like you said, 15 minutes on a treadmill, going for that hike with Sharon you mentioned last week, and you were like, I'm done. It's like, when regular life kind of just taps you out. And
that next day was like, I honestly felt feverish. I felt like it felt like my whole eyeball was burning behind me. And now I'm like, okay, now I can go.
No, that's normal. That's just pink eye or something.
That burning sensation going all the way through your brain. So here was the great one, because I love, we always share the bizarre doctor stories. So I go down to our local, we have our main hospital up north about 10 minutes away. And that's where the emergency room is. Well, they put in, it's called just like a clinic down here. And it's got all the services except for like surgery and stuff. But it's basically, you come in, any wellness checks and that kind of stuff, lab work, whatever you have it done there. So we're driving by. It's like, let's just pop in. So we pop in. And they don't do walk-ins. If you want to do a walk-in, you got to go to the emergency room. And it's like, well, come and make an appointment. And they're like, well, if you make an appointment, it'll be like 2 weeks out. But we're open on Saturdays, and if you call us at 8 a.m, we can make you an appointment on the same day. Which I just thought was weird. Like, you can't just make me an appointment for tomorrow.
Right.
No, you have to call in the next morning. And then you can have the appointment on the same day, which is how they typically operate, which I've always been happy with. I can call them in the morning, and they can usually get me in that day.
Yeah.
So I went on Saturday, and I had to wait for a long time because some kid came in, needed stitches, which I was like, I'm cool.
Right. Same as my situation last week when I made that comment. Yeah.
Yep. It was exactly the same. And, when I finally got in there all apologizing, and I'm like, no, don't
like,
need to apologize.
No, that he should have, like this sucks, but I can handle this.
Yeah. Exactly.
Yeah.
And so I finally ended up with, so they give me these antibiotics that I guess is I don't remember what it's called. It's the latest for sinus infections. It's the one that they use exclusively for it, I guess. And the woman says it's kind of hard on the stomach. So make sure you talk to the pharmacist when you pick it up. So I talked to the pharmacist, and the pharmacist was like, eat it with, take it with food. It can be, and some water, really, because it can be really hard on the stomach. And some people say that it acts as a laxative.
Oh boy.
Well, that's a freaking understatement.
Wow.
Jeez.
So did you schedule like a colonoscopy the next day or something? I mean, might as well get it all ran through. No.
Like, seriously, I pop one of these in, and within 20 minutes, it's just like, run to the bathroom.
Oh man.
And so but I felt better instantly. That like the next day, Sunday, I felt fine. Like Bryan admonished me Sunday. I go to the gym. I totally busted out 45 minutes on the treadmill. I'm feeling good.
Yeah, and I was like, I'm going to the gym, and I'm like, are you not listening to your body? I'm like, do I have to lecture both of my co-hosts this week?
It was so funny. It was great. But it ended up being okay, and it was good. But then what was funny is like another 2 days later, I started feeling bad again. But it didn't dawn on me today what that probably is because the antibiotics have probably just destroyed. I take a probiotic. It's destroyed my immune system. All the beneficial bacteria in my body. So
sure, all them pros and antis fighting each other.
Exactly, they're having a war in there. So I figure, somebody's going to lose and win a little bit. So luckily today I had my shipment that my order from Salty Language Podcast.
Shameless plug, nicely done.
Shameless plug, yep.
Yeah.
My freaking almost $100 worth of probiotics or whatever.
Ooh, man.
But it was funny how on Friday I was still reminded of I have that thing where I need to go in and ask for help, but and even though I've been feeling not right for a while, like I don't know why I still put it off, and it's that kind of a reminder where it's like sometimes I suffer needlessly,
right?
because of my own pride.
Yeah.
And it's not even pride. I don't even know what it is. I don't want to burden. So I don't,
Yeah.
It's like, this is why I have health insurance. This is why I have this, but I will suffer.
That's the worst part, is it's like you have insurance.
Yeah.
If you didn't, at least you could go, I can't afford it. Like, I can't afford, and there's people that can't. And it's horrible that you see them suffer for, that reason. And it's just like, when I see some people go through really awful stuff, and I'm like, and then you're talking with them, and you'll think they don't have insurance. And then when they're like, blah, blah, my insurance, and you're like, wait, what?
Exactly.
Like, I'll hear people talking about their teeth, and, in the way they talk, you'll go, oh, they don't have dental, kind of a thing. And then they're like, yeah, well, I have dental through, and you're like, why are you not going to a dentist? Like, if you have it, go use it. That's what it's supposed to be for, Don't suffer unnecessarily. This is kind of a thing, and I can speak firsthand for this too, in that years ago, part of the reason I never went on an antidepressant or into therapy was because I was afraid it was going to extinguish my creative spark. Mm-hmm. I was so afraid it was going to take away what I felt made me who I am, And realistically, what happened was my stubbornness to do that allowed my depression to extinguish that spark. You know what I mean? And it wasn't until I read an article, I've mentioned it on the show before, I read an article where an artist talked about the exact same thing, how he avoided medicine for years because, well, what if I'm just a zombie all the time? I'm not creative. I'm not driven anymore. This is how I feed my family. This is and he went and got on a medicine, was like, I'm the same guy, and it's the same thing. It's like he suffered for whatever. I didn't get on an antidepressant until, 5 years ago? I've been suffering from depression since I was 12. I'll be 38 this year. You know what I mean? It's like, why did I suffer all those years, And
it's an ego thing completely, and a control thing.
Yep.
I read a great article about an indie musician. He's kind of in that Americana country music kind of genre, and he was a heroin addict, and he didn't, it was like all of the music that he was known for was written when he was using drugs. And he was afraid of what was going to happen, like what's going to happen to me if suddenly I'm clean. I've seen so many, he could list off all the artists who once they got clean, their careers went in the toilet and blah, blah, blah. Well, he got himself clean. And, it was a struggle. He had to learn how to write music again because it was different now. Yep. However, it all ended up being just fine. And he has that same thing, like, what the hell was I waiting for?
And I think that's the real problem, is that what happens is you only know how to write music when you're high or messed up or whatever. You just don't really know how to channel who you are into your music while you're sober. And I think that's probably a big part of it, because you're still trying to figure other stuff out. And, but you're right. There's been various artists that I've liked, musicians, and you'll hear that they went into rehab and they're out. And then the new album comes out and you're like that wasn't that good, Yeah. Or you'll hear something. I mean, it was like, one that most people are probably aware of would be a great example, Metallica, James Hetfield goes in and gets sober. He goes into therapy. He comes out. They do Saint Anger, and people are like, "This is horrible." It's maybe the most cathartic album I've ever listened to. He is putting himself purely into those lyrics of trying to get anger out of himself from a bandmate dying that was like a brother to him, and all this, and getting all the rage from his drinking and all that. And people are just like, "This is garbage. This is the worst thing ever." And I'm like, wow, just how much hate. And it's like, well, it's like the next album, it wouldn't have surprised me if he was like, okay, well, here's all my hatred kind of reflected,
Isn't it interesting that a lot of the stuff we love is when people are in pain and in agony?
Yeah.
Because that we can accept, because Here's the fact, and this is where I get all spiritual again. Life is suffering,
Mm-hmm.
and people and misery loves company.
We identify
and we
with
love it when that artist
Yeah.
speaks to our misery.
Yep.
And isn't it strange that when somebody suddenly becomes a positive voice and they no longer have like what happened to them?
Yeah.
Well, they themselves would they would never trade that back. They would never say, you know what, I would rather live than go back and have success under those terms again.
Yeah.
They're fine with it. It's the audience that can't understand, because I think deep down inside we don't want to change and we fear it.
Yeah.
And it's scary. It really is scary. You have to get through it to finally to see that, like I say, like I was not in my right mind.
Right.
Yeah.
I had to get to the other side to go, oh, okay, yeah, not normal thinking.
Yeah. I can't imagine what it's got to be like to be a 50 or 55-year-old rocker, trying to write a rock music song, because everybody wants you to still write a song. Like, picture, okay, here's a great example. Motley Crue. Let's put them in their mid-50s. Everyone still wants girls, girls, girls.
Yeah.
I don't look at them. Do you want girls, girls, girls from those guys?
No. Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? But that's what, realistically, that is what people want from, like that kind of a thing.
Yeah.
And it's like, if they don't deliver that kind of vibe, people are like, that's garbage. And I'm like, but that isn't who they are. Like, music should change with the artist. And I don't understand why people can't. And then I stop and think about it and go, it's because a lot of these people don't change. A lot of these people are still wearing the same thing they wore in high school. They're driving the Camaro they drove in high school.
Yep.
They're,
Yep.
You know what I mean? And that's
Yep.
why.
Yep.
So I understand
changed,
it.
Yep.
They haven't
if they
changed much.
Yep.
And
Yep.
those are
And-
their glory days,
Yep. And they have no understanding of it. Like, you can understand James Hetfield's lyrics.
Yeah.
Because you are going through change in your own life.
Right. I've said before, I love, Scott Weiland of Stone Temple Pilots and stuff. Most of his songs are about his fight with heroin.
Yeah.
And, it's like, I can't identify with heroin. I can identify with some of his songs that he wrote with the, depression and stuff that went along with his fight and stuff. But a lot of people just thought that his songs were kind of whimsical and weird. And like, when I would listen to him and people are like, oh, these lyrics are, I'm like, they're about his fights with heroin addiction. Like, if you're just taking them as whimsical and weird, I guess that's fine. It's art, it's open to interpretation, but these are really dark lyrics. Like, these are like, these aren't good. Like,
it's very interesting when we're talking, because we're kind of just segueing into the topic for today.
But we can't get into the topic because I have a really interesting thing to talk about before we get into it.
Well, now, Mr. didn't want to share his week with us.
I know. No, it's because I didn't know what everyone else had. I just wanted to hog the spotlight.
All right.
Narcissist.
The
I'm
positive narcissist.
I'm the headliner. That's why. No.
Don't you know who I am?
Yeah. Oh man, again, if I didn't try to title the shows more about like our topic, this show would be "Don't You Know Who I Am?" For sure. No.
So how was your week, Brian?
So I started my new antidepressant this week.
Okay.
And
Any hives?
No, that's
Yay!
that's my win of the week. No. that is obviously a huge bonus. So here's something really interesting. The last couple days, I have started a Facebook group for the podcast, which you can find at facebook.com/group/crazylifepodcast. The link will be in the show notes. I put up a clip of our show on Clamor. I did that for Salty Language also. I've scheduled a bunch of, 3 guests now for Salty Language in the last 3 days. I've scheduled, I've written down a full page of ideas, including t-shirt ideas, sticker ideas, other merch for both podcasts, ideas for kind of just fun things to do for both podcasts. I have, what else have I done? Trying to think.
I'm just looking around because what show am I on?
I finished a book.
Who am I talking to right now? Where's Bryan?
I finished a book and have almost finished another one.
Is this new drug Speed?
No. However, when looking up what one of the side effects of the drug is today, Jen, this doesn't sound familiar to you, does it?
Yeah, it does.
2 reasons it should sound familiar to you. Do you remember when I first started taking Effexor?
Yes.
Do you remember how you were like, wow, you have a lot more energy?
Yeah.
Yeah. And 2, it should also sound familiar to you because one of the side effects of this medicine, which are fairly common, is that you can have manic episodes.
Yeah.
Including
I was just wondering about that.
high bouts of energy.
Yay!
I'm pretty sure I'm having a manic episode.
Are you sleeping?
Not much.
I've been like getting like messages from you during the day, and I'm like, why is he awake?
Yeah. I've been getting up much earlier. I'll be honest. It's nice getting stuff done.
Sure.
For obviously, I hate the lack of sleep stuff because that's going to catch me somewhere. But it is nice getting some stuff done. But I really don't like the other side of that, in that I know from being around you enough that I know there's going to be the other side of it. Plus, I know me well enough to know, obviously, that, you know, you just can't go with little sleep for lengths of time. You know, there's going to be a crash. I do also know I have to switch the time of day I take the medicine. Yes. The doctor told me originally to take it at night because some people get drowsy from it. So in the event,
obviously don't.
No, in the event that it make me drowsy, you know, you take it before bed. He said, if it keeps you awake, take it when you get up instead. So as of tomorrow, I'm going to start taking it. I'm not going to take it tonight. I'm going to take it tomorrow when I get up and, stuff. But, so that's kind of a big aha moment today. So I have therapy tomorrow. So I have a whole lot to talk to her about because it's been, since last week I didn't really get to get into anything. I've got like almost a month and a half of things to talk to her about. I'm going to see if I can go again next week. And in fact, I'm actually thinking I may try to, through the month of May, maybe go every week. If I can,
good idea.
Because of some other stuff that I'm not going to get into on this show at the moment. But for those listening, everything's okay. Like, it's not like, not like last month, not like suicidal stuff or anything. I have some stuff that has really been going on in my head that I really want to kind of work on. But yeah, anyway, so.
Oh, cool.
Just no big life decisions at this point.
Right. I fully understand that.
Yeah,
there's none. There's none really for me to make. So I'm kind of whatever, but.
Yeah. And that's fine. It's just make sure that you're aware that your decision-making skills may not be at their peak.
Yeah. Well, and that's the thing. I'm going to talk to my therapist tomorrow, even though I know she's not the psychiatrist and he's the appropriate one to talk to about the medicine and its effects. Mm-hmm. But I'll talk to her because she has again, they're in the same building.
Yeah.
So, and he's only there on Thursday. Tomorrow's Thursday. So there's a chance he might actually be there. So we'll see how that works out. Maybe depending on his schedule, she might be like, hey, hold on. Let me go grab him or something, but whatever. Cool. But we'll see how that works out. So,
I love when doctors tag team.
Well, it's awesome that they're in the same building. My general practitioner, my psychiatrist, and my psychologist are in the same building, which is awesome.
They can have Bryan conferences.
They do. They do, actually. Like when I before they chose this medicine, they actually talked about ups and downs and stuff. So
that's amazing. I can't speak highly enough about doctors coordinating with each other like that.
Right.
I mean, that's just the epitome of the super team, you know, coming together to work for a person.
Yeah. And they, they both seem pretty good, that, really caring about what's going on and stuff. I don't feel like I'm, in there and being pushed out. So, yeah.
Yeah.
But anyway,
awesome.
So that's pretty big. And yeah, it was funny though, because today I'm like, man, I told my mom yesterday, I was like, I kind of feel like I'm getting some of my spark back. Like, I've had ideas for drawing stuff, and I'm like, this is what I want. And I'm like, man, if after 3 days, and I'm like, but I also know in your first week of these medicines, sometimes you get that big wave of stuff, and then it calms. Effexor did that.
Yeah.
I got a huge wave of it in the first 2 weeks, and then it calmed way down, and then I went into that awful gray area. So I'm not getting it too excited about it. But I was like, and then today I was like, oh, wait a minute. And then it hit me. I was like, I went through this with Effexor. And I looked it up and I was like, I was like, damn it. I was like, of course, when I saw the, may cause, mania or bouts of mania. And I was like, well, I got to make sure I mention that to the doctor. I'll mention it to her and see if she thinks I should call the doctor or whatever, so. But anyway, we'll see. So.
But no, that's awesome that you have this much energy, and I openly admit that when I was in my mania was some of the best feelings I've ever had. Like,
right.
I felt on top of the world.
Well, that's why I decided that since I'm like this and I'm awake, I've got this long list of things I've been trying to do. And I've
take advantage of it, yeah.
I got so lazy about scheduling people for our interviews for Salty Language, and I'm like, I'm getting this done. Like, I'm going to get people scheduled for this while I'm feeling like this, because I know that there's a likelihood that I'm not going to feel like this down, a week from now or 2 weeks from, so I figured I'm going to start, do what I can while I can, and kind of just get myself set up for success down the road is basically what I'm doing,
Heck yeah.
That way
nothing wrong with that.
because there's likely to be a crash, I hope there isn't, but there's likely to be one, I'm not trying to be negative, just realistically, I'm probably going to have one somewhere.
Sleepy time for Bryan.
Yeah, even if it's okay, I just need a day or two to just, night nights. So, all right. Well, it's
that's good.
Yeah,
that's awesome. Well, the topic of today is, and I don't really mean to be all that formal about it, but what we were going to talk about today is music and the effects of music. And I think music is very interesting because people use it in so many different ways. Which
I think we actually have great examples just with the three of us.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. And I think there's definitely two parts to music. There's the instruments and the actual sound of it, but there's also the lyrics. So, because, some people, I like lyrics and stuff, but what initially attracts me to a song isn't necessarily the lyrics, it's the beats, and it's the sound of the voice and the music all together.
And if you can dance with other people in a line.
Line dancing, yes. I do enjoy a good line dance here or there.
Sorry, I couldn't help myself.
But, like, when you think back to my favorite songs, most of them, the lyrics aren't all that powerful.
Well, you get the lyrics wrong most of the time too, so it doesn't. That certainly doesn't help, Hey,
everything's up for interpretation.
Yeah, yeah. Really quick, and I'm sorry to derail this. Jen mentioned to me that I should watch The Unbreakable Kimmy Schmidt on Netflix, and I finally watched it. And there's an episode where she gets a cassette tape, and it's all songs that are really close to hits, but the lyrics are just off.
Oh.
And I think it's in season 2, and I laugh so hard because all the songs, and she's singing them like they're the biggest hits. Like you should know them all, and they all sound so familiar because the song is the same, but the lyrics are just off or totally off. It was so funny. It reminded me of you singing songs, Jen.
Yeah, I can't get lyrics right to save my life. And, and I was in choirs and and musicals, and I sang a good portion of my childhood was spent singing. So you would think I would get lyrics. No, I suck at lyrics. I'll never get them right. But, songs that resonate with me that are kind of my go-tos and stuff like that always cheer me up or make me smile are songs that really have, for lack of a better word, not a lot of substance. Like one of my favorites is Wake Me Up Before You Go Go. Now, I get Wake Me Up Before You Go Go, don't leave me hanging like a yo-yo, like hanging on like a yo-yo. That is not something that's probably going to go down in history as the best lyric ever.
I'm pretty sure it was found in Shakespeare's notebooks.
Yeah,
Pretty
it
sure.
wouldn't surprise me.
Yeah.
But the point is, but good with that beat and that music, I cannot help but sing along every single time.
Mm-hmm.
It just, you have to, wake me up before you go. Don't leave me hanging on like a yo-yo. You just start boogieing. I don't know why. It just is. And similar to that, but the opposite side, there's certain songs that I listen to that I will find myself crying without really even like knowing what they're singing about. And I'm crying because the mixture of the music with the voice and how it's put together and stuff, it brings up, this emotion. Perfect example is funerals. How often do we go to a funeral home and they're playing that music? The music that they play, you find yourself whispering. And you find yourself, you're talking hushed tones and stuff, and you're almost afraid to laugh. And I mean, it's just like the tone of everything. It's all built around this music and stuff. So I wanted to kind of bring that up and talk about how music can mentally set the tone for what you're doing and where you're at in life.
Right. And, it's interesting because, like I said, the way it's influenced each of us is really different because, Heno, has written songs. He's, he has instruments. He's toured. He's played the way he has. Like you said, you've been in choir and different stuff and sang and been in musicals and whatnot. I don't have a lick of musical ability that I'm aware of in my life. And, but the way it influenced me was, that it reached me, at different times in my life when I really needed something, and, or, various times when I used to draw, depending on what I was drawing, I would change the music so that it fit kind of what I was drawing. Mm-hmm. And, like that kind of a thing. Or I would just, I would listen to music so much, whether I was reading, drawing, it didn't matter. I was constantly just had, my own music on, or I had the radio on, or I had, I was playing, my stuff off my computer or whatever. So it was just such an interesting thing to me. And even now, like, I'll realize that, like, when I get to certain points, like, if I'm getting really if I catch that I'm in a depression spiral, it's still one of the first things that I'll do. Mm-hmm. Is, as much as I love podcasts and stuff, I will go right to playing music because it alters the way I feel, Mm-hmm. And it's certain songs make you, will pull you out of, a funk better than other songs sometimes, like you're having the worst day and you're like, almost everybody's got a go-to song or something like that, or they have a go-to playlist or something along those lines, like me, I've said before, Just a Friend by Biz Markie is a song I absolutely cannot hear without laughing, mm-hmm. especially when he gets to the hook of the song and he gets into that. You can't hear it without singing it out loud yourself, and you're singing it terribly. It doesn't matter if you're a good singer or a bad singer. It's just one of those kind of songs, so it just makes you feel good and you laugh about it, even if that's all you sing is just that part, and then you just turn it right off, that's all you need sometimes.
Another good one for that is, I think it was Shaggy who sings it. It wasn't me.
Yeah, it's Shaggy.
Yeah, cracks me up every time I hear it because it's just it's the blatantly this guy's caught cheating,
yeah.
And the refrain is wasn't me,
yeah.
And it's like you can't help but laugh, It makes you smile. How about you, Hanno?
I've always been really emotionally connected to music since I was a kid. Yeah, it's actually some of my oldest memories that I have that are just vibrant, clear memories, or being homesick from school and listening to the radio all day long and just really, really emotionally connecting to certain songs. And I've always been that way. And it's funny, I tend to use music. I don't usually listen to music to change my mood. I listen to music to fit my mood, or fit what I'm doing. I was just thinking about, as you guys were talking about, if I've ever been in a funk, do I go to listen to something uplifting to change my mood? And it's like, no, I don't.
No, I'm the same way. Like, and I think I've said it on here before, and I know I've talked to both of you about that before. Because I read about, the whole idea that when you're if you're in a bad mood or you're down, listen to whatever your favorite music is. It doesn't have to be uplifting. It's just whatever you like. Like if you love thrash metal and you're just having a bad day, listen to thrash metal and it will improve your mood. And it's because it's something that just makes you happy. And I'm not talking the catharsis of banging your head around and all that. I mean, there's an element of that probably makes you feel pretty good. That's what I always loved about those concerts. You leave a concert like that, you're dripping wet with sweat. You've just banged your head for 2.5 hours. I mean, your ears are ringing. You're going partially deaf, but whatever, But there was something about leaving those concerts I'd look at Tony and we'd be like, yes, And no matter what you went in there with, it stayed in there, man. It didn't come back out with you, And so I think some of that kind of carries over for me. There's times, yesterday, I went in, I was cutting my hair and trimming my beard down, and I pulled up Pandora and I just put on a Slayer station. And while I'm cutting my hair with my clippers, I'm banging my head,
Not a good combo.
Yeah. And it wasn't, and I just needed kind of like a pick me up, or I'll put on a Pantera station or something. I don't look for, and I love music from the 50s and all that kind of the doo-wop stuff. I love all that kind of music forward, So I can go for a lot of uplifting stuff, but I don't look for that a lot of times. I just go right to my wheelhouse, and
And I think
a lot of that.
Go ahead, Hanno.
I think a lot of that the reason for me why I do that and why I would recommend other people do that is you're more going to be in the moment if the music matches your mood.
Yep.
And if the music grabs you, for the most part, it'll put us into a moment, and it also does things to our brain, and we can have an endorphin release. We can have all sorts of things that end up being beneficial. People will sit there, oh, how could you listen to this? This is depressing. And it's like,
it's not.
Yeah, but it matches my mood, and I'm actually feeling better now because it's something about aligning ourselves, that our thoughts and our feelings and our emotions all get in tune. And when we're in the moment, like you're talking about, when you're at a funeral, you feel the way you're supposed to feel because this is where I'm at.
Yeah.
You're not fighting it. You're not in there trying to pretend that you're happy. No, it's complete acceptance. And I think that's the most important thing is that so many people try to fight how they're feeling. They're trying to, I'm not supposed to feel this way. And it's like, I just say, throw that out the window. It's like, feel how you're supposed to feel.
Well, there's another side to it too at the funerals is that they do kind of milk it a little bit in that, similar to a movie, right? If they want to build suspense, they play a certain kind of music. And you feel how they want you to feel. And in a lot of funerals are kind of that way. Like my dad's funeral, my mom played 50s and 60s rock music.
Yeah.
Because that's what my dad wanted. He didn't want a bunch of people crying around. That's not who my dad was,
And it was much louder than, not the music, but people. Like, people weren't whispering. People weren't, tiptoeing around. They were actually sharing memories of him, and I would hate to say enjoying themselves, but in a sense,
they were,
celebrating his life.
Exactly. That's how I would word it. And now on the other side of it, I can't listen to Spirit in the Sky without almost breaking down, because that was the last song.
Right.
And that song now, seriously, that's boom. As soon as I hear it, it immediately takes me to that spot. And, you know, I love that about music, and I also hate that about music, that it is, to me, the ultimate in time travel. There are so many songs that you can hear a note from that song, or just something about that song, and I can go, man, this reminds me of this. And it's an exact moment or whatever. And like that one puts me right there. And I'm like, if I hear it, it isn't that I don't like the song. It's just, I immediately think of my dad's funeral. And it's not, I don't want to think about my dad's funeral generally ever, you know? Like there's so many other things about him I'd rather remember. And there's a lot of music I can remember because growing up, we sold stuff at like flea markets and whatnot. And we used to do a lot of car shows, you know, like where they'd assemble a bunch of like, you know, muscle cars and stuff. So basically you'd wake up every day and from minute 1 in the morning, they're playing all sorts of music. And so that's where I kind of got a lot of my love for that music. I also hate various songs for that reason because they played them too much. Or I just didn't really care for them to begin with. And now they're on heavy rotation, you know, but whatever. Either way, I hear them and boom, right back to those things, you know. So.
Well, that's why one of my tattoos that I have it includes some lyrics. It's the lyrics are "Sing a Song," and it's from a Mary Chapman Carpenter.
No, you had it right the first time.
Okay.
Yeah.
Mary Chapman Carmen. You know, I can't say it.
You got it right the first time. Just move on.
Moving on. Anyways, the lyrics are, my mom used to sing the song to us, my brother and I, when we were little kids, when we were babies and growing up. And the lyrics are, sing a song, make it simple to last the whole night long. It doesn't matter if it's good enough for anyone else to hear. Just sing a song. And I always love those lyrics, and it just really resonates with me. And I think back to that, and it's like, how much does that keep reappearing in my life?
Yeah.
You know, that it's not necessarily, you know, singing is a metaphor for a lot of different things to me, for me. And I just, you know, it's about being that individual. It's owning your voice, owning who you want to be, and putting it out there. And it doesn't matter what anyone else thinks.
Yeah.
This is who you want to be. This is who you're going to be. And that's why I wanted it tattooed on my ankle. You know, because obviously it reminds me of my mom, but it also is kind of a life lesson that I've taken with me from infant on up. And it's amazing what music can do that, you know? Something as simple as just a string of words put together, put to music, can make all the difference in the world. It can change your mood. It can score your life and remind you of things. And, you know, it, like you said, it's a time traveler. You know, it's the biggest time machine ever. And it's amazing. How often do we get stuck in a spot? That, you know, there's a reason why there's an 80s station, there's 90s stations and stuff like that. There's a reason that people get stuck at a point in their life when music resonated the most to them, and that's the music that they seek out and they go to.
Yeah.
You know, it's really fascinating, and I'm sure there's plenty of studies out there and articles written about it, but you know, it's just, it's really cool.
Yeah. Out of curiosity, Hanno, so where do you go? Like for your, like when, like I said, I generally go like right to, you know, some like hard rock kind of stuff. What do you go to?
Ooh, wow.
Like, do you have like kind of or is it just like I know you said based on your feeling, I guess. So I guess that would make it harder to narrow down.
You know, it really comes. You know, it's like it's really, it really is about the emotion of the music.
Yeah.
So and emotion in music goes beyond genre.
Mm-hmm.
You know, because every genre, every artist within a genre can apply a different emotion in the music. So, you know, I can, I can listen to like, solo songwriter guy, and that guy can be very uplifting and happy, but he can also be very kind of, melancholy. There's so much variety, and I love all kinds of music. There's just too much for me to even say. It's just, it's ridiculous, but, there's certain things that I do in certain, like when I go to the gym, but even then, here's the funny thing. Neil and I talk about this all the time. He and I will actually put on, slow ballads when we work out.
Really?
Yeah.
That's
And
different.
and the first time I heard him say that, I was like, I do that too.
Now, why is that? That seems counterintuitive.
Yeah, it's weird how like sometimes I'll pop in and I'll put on the metal. Nope. I'll put on the, the boom, boom, boom.
Yeah, I was saying most people go with like house music or something like that.
Nope, not like that. And then I'll put on like, some, kind of I'll put on like Beth Hart and just slow ballads, of her playing piano and singing. And because what it is once again, it's the emotion.
Yeah.
So a lot of the, there's angst in a lot of these slow ballads, especially when you're singing about love, right?
So you're feeding off of that, not the beat instead.
Exactly.
Okay.
It's not the guitar riff. It's the emotion in the vocals or the lyric,
right,
or whatever it is. And a lot of it could be that I'm tapping into what I already have inside of myself.
Right.
And I think that's where I use music as, once again, it's like, I know a lot of people use music to change their mood. I use music to enhance where I'm at.
Right.
That's how it if I'm not, it's like, if I'm in a funk, there's no amount of music that is going to get me out of that. I'm not.
Well, see, it was funny because, well, not funny, but like when I was in high school, what happened was on the days when I was like having my really, like, I'd be in school, I'd get bullied really bad, and I'd come home and, I'd sit down to like draw or whatever, and I'd throw in whatever CD at the time, pick a grunge act. That's probably what it was. It was either that or it was some, metal band generally. And, it was a lot of the grunge acts just felt, it's funny as this sounds, because I didn't go into like the Smiths or the Cure or Depeche Mode a whole lot or something, but it was like they felt more like they were a friend sitting there going, dude, I get it, man. I totally understand. Mm-hmm. And that's what I didn't get from anybody at the time. And I think that's what I was looking for in the music, is that it wasn't even about improving my mood. It wasn't about anything else as much as it was like, it felt like a friend that was sitting there understanding. And that was kind of what I was getting at when I wrote that blog after Scott Weiland died. When I was like, that's why it was such a heart-ripping moment for me, was because I felt like I lost a friend, even though I never met the guy. Mm-hmm. I never was close to the guy in any way. But it felt like it because I was so close to the music. I hold that music so close to my heart because it was such it was so important to me at that time, and where I was at. And I think there's a lot of that to it. And I think that's kind of what I tend to do with music. Don't get me wrong. There is plenty of music that I listen to simply because it makes me laugh. There's a lot of Ludacris that I listen to that I just love. And I love the beat. I love the lyrics. I'll rap to it and I laugh. There's a lot of that kind of stuff. And then there's other stuff where I'm just like, no, seriously, you got to listen. Like, there's a lot of like rap that I'll listen to and be like, no, really, you need to listen to these lyrics because this dude is seriously writing some legitimate stuff, And it's so interesting to me how there's a lot of people who dismiss a lot of that stuff as, oh, it's just, it's pop music and it's like, no, it's really important to a lot of people. And that's why I've kind of, we've talked before, it's like guilty pleasures are really, I can't dismiss them as guilty pleasures anymore because they might be really important to somebody else, even though it seems like there's nothing in them. Maybe that Miley Cyrus album is the most important album that person bought, And I just have a hard time with it now. I know I'm getting softer in my old age, but it's just, I can't look at it the way I used to, you know?
And there is so much to be said for just everybody's ears are different. You know, we all hear things differently, you know, and so it's very hard to criticize subjectivity.
Oh no, it's easy to do that.
You know, it's all a matter of everybody.
All you
has
need for
different
proof of
things.
that is to go listen to a podcast that Henno is on called Moving the Needle. There's only one good episode, and it's the one I'm on. But if you'll notice, anytime I mention another podcast, generally the only good episode is the one I'm on.
Exactly. Positive narcissism.
Right. Positive narcissism. That's right. Yep.
I do want to mention one of my favorites that they have gone through different phases and stuff. But Bare Naked Ladies, the band, has some really, really amazing songs. And their most popular is probably If I Had $1 Million. But that's not nearly, like, that's not even the tip of the iceberg of their lyrical genius. I mean, some of the songs are so upbeat and pop, you know, just very poppy and fun. And when you listen to the lyrics, they're so dark.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, there's a song about a guy falling asleep at the wheel and getting into his car crash. And he's singing, in the refrain is, and you're the last thing on my mind. And the way the song is written, you don't know if he's meaning in a sweet way that, you know, you're the last thing on my mind, you're the last thing I'm thinking about and stuff like that. Or if he's meaning it the opposite, which is you're the furthest thing from my mind. There's no way I would be thinking about you or anything like that. So you never know for sure which way he's going with it through the entire song. And it's an upbeat song. So when you're listening to it, you're kind of just bopping your head around in the car. But when you stop and you like dissect the lyrics, you're like, oh my gosh.
You shouldn't be bopping your head around. That song is really slow and very melodic, and it's dramatically paced. You shouldn't be bopping your head around to that unless you're just like crazy.
Dramatically placed.
It is.
No.
You need to go back and listen to that
I know.
song.
You're the last thing on my mind. I know. I remember the song.
It's got like big bombastic drums and it's drawn out. It's purposely dramatic.
So we'll agree to disagree.
So getting to Jen's point about that we all hear things
Yeah.
differently.
Yeah.
We all hear things differently.
It's true.
It is, though.
Like I have, you know, this is where with a lot of my own music, where I'll write something where I feel my emotion and I've played it for somebody, I'll be like, yeah, check out this new song I wrote, and I can see right off the bat that they don't get it at all.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
And that's where I kind of pull back a lot. And I'm like, you know, there's no way I'm ever going to convey to somebody, purposely convey to somebody my feelings unless they want to feel them themselves.
Right. It's like discovering a new band. You know, and you're just like, this band's so awesome, and you're like,
you're living it.
Yeah, you're like, you have to hear this, and someone else is like, I don't get it, man.
Get it.
Like it's just noise to me, and you're like, how do you not understand? Like the way they're layering these guitars, and you're like, it's noise, dude.
and I've had the turnaround too, where when it was funny when I was on tour, our drummer found this album, and it was just so out there. I mean, just dissonant and real, you know, progressive sounding and complex and complicated. And there's some hooks in there, but really none, and weird lyrics. And all of us were just like, whoa. And, you know, it was maybe 6 months to a year later that I finally got it. And I was like, oh, you know, and I totally got it. And we went and saw them live. And I mean, it was unbelievable. But at the time I'm like, I don't understand this at all. I don't understand your obsession with it. And then when I finally got it, I got the obsession. There's
so many bands that have, and I always try with people. Like I had a friend a few years ago that was huge into LCD Sound System. And they were like, like the way they do this and this. And I listened, and he sent me some of their stuff, and I listened to it. And I'm like, dude, it just sounds like noise to me. I just don't get it. Like, I'm like, maybe we need to sit in a room and you explain to me as we're listening. Maybe then I'll understand a little better, you know, similar to, you know, like we're staring at a piece of art, and this is this, you know, maybe that's what it, you know, maybe that's what I need is, you know, someone to kind of walk me through the music, you know? And he's like, well, if you don't get it, it's just, you know, I'm telling you, I'm like, I'm not a musician, so maybe you're telling me and I'm not getting it for that reason. Or I'm like, I don't know, man. I just feel like this is either too cool for school, or it's over my head or something, or it's not, or it's too pretentious. I don't know what it is, but it doesn't work for me. You know, I was like, it's cool that you're so into it. That's awesome. I don't hate you for it or something. I just don't get it. But there are a lot of people. Like, I remember when they were like, we're going to tour again, and people were going out of their mind for it. And I was like, all right, you know? So, hey, whatever, you know?
To each his own. And ultimately what it boils down to is not what it does for others, it's what it does for you.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
You know, music is an amazing, amazing art form that everybody can do. Whether you're good at it or not doesn't really matter. I mean, that's like the lyrics of the song I mentioned earlier. It doesn't matter what anyone else thinks about it. Sing in the shower, you know, enjoy your music in whatever way, shape, or form. Drum on your steering wheel, play your air guitar, play your real instruments. You know,
that's why Rock Band is as popular as it is. That's
exactly.
why people love that so much, is you get the ability to, you know, just be in the moment. You know, you
simply just enjoy your music in a different way.
Yeah, you can, you know, get with your friends or by yourself, whichever, and just, you know, beat the heck out of those plastic drums and, you know, and pretend you can play guitar or whatever. And it just gives people that moment of, like I said, just being in it, because who doesn't? How many times do you sit there and you're sitting around and you're watching people listening to music, and how many people are playing the guitar on their leg, playing drums on their leg, or a counter or whatever? It's, you know, it's, everybody does it. We all seem to love music. It's very rare that you find somebody and they're like, nah, I'm not a music person. You know, when you do, you're always like, you're a sociopath. Like, you have to be. Like, it's like, you know, ask people, hey, do you want to hear a funny story? The first time you hear no, run.
That's funny. Another a video that I saw on, I believe it was on Facebook, was a while ago, but really spoke to me, it was a father and daughter, and it was the song oh my gosh, it's from the song from Frozen.
Let It Go.
Let It Go.
Yes.
It's the only song I know from the movie.
Yes,
so,
it's Let It Go. And the little girl's probably 3 years old, maybe 4 years old, in the back seat. And as a younger father, and
dang
he's
it, Bryan, no.
Huh?
Sorry, you said backseat. I immediately went into Fantasy by Ludacris. Man, sorry. Go ahead. So inappropriate for this story, too.
Yes. And the song comes on, and she knows it verbatim, you know, word for word. And he is her biggest fan. Sure. And he's in the front seat cheering her on, going, okay, you ready? Here comes your big solo, big point. And she's like, okay. And it gets to the point, and it crescendos and Let It Go, and she just completely lets it go and is singing at the top of her lungs, throwing her arms in the air. He's like, and Dad's drum solo, and he's drumming on the steering wheel, and they're just having this moment of just pure joy, and she's just belting it out at the top of her lungs, and he's completely supporting her in everything that she's doing, and it's one of those just pure joy that you watch it and you just see this moment building between the two of them that they're always going to have.
Yeah. And I mean, like, aside from food, what else brings people together like that, you know?
Yeah. And
there isn't much in life that people can sit around and enjoy that much together. You can have people who don't even know the same language that can sit around and enjoy the same song. you know, and
Oh
it's
my
like,
gosh.
that's why I said food's the same way. You can
Yeah.
sit down and enjoy the same food and not be able to actually talk, but you could still enjoy the same food, you know, and music
The
is
story
similar
of
in that.
Silent Night.
Mhm.
You know, World War II, was it? And the Germans and Americans.
Yeah, I don't remember the exact story because I don't remember, but
It was they
I'm
did
waiting for a shot of
ceasefire.
history to do it, so I'll know.
There you go. They did a ceasefire on Christmas Eve at midnight, and when they did a ceasefire for that moment, some Americans across one of the battlefields, some Americans started singing Silent Night, and across the battlefield, the German soldiers started singing Stille Nacht.
Oh, right, yeah.
And they all pretty much sang Silent Night together. And then after the song was over, fought each other again.
Sure.
But it was just for that moment, you know, everything stopped.
Yeah.
They had that moment around that song, you know, and there's so many examples, I think, that we can pull out of history, we can pull out of our personal lives, you know, that everyone can relate to and share. It seriously scores our lives. Music does.
Yeah.
It's amazing.
Well, you know what I think is really interesting is how many times music is a device, is something that people allow to be divisive. And instead, I think people just need to just drop it. You know, just stay in your own lane. If you don't like what somebody else is listening to, just who cares? You know, like for the most part. I mean, you know, like we mentioned earlier, like the moving the needle stuff is fun. Like it's fun to debate. It's fun to argue, you know, and it's not ill-willed at all. It's all fun.
No.
You know, you guys are all, you know, just busting each other's chops a little bit over there. It's good time. And I like that, you know, but I hate when people get really violent about some of this stuff, you know, like some of the metalheads get really bad about pop music, and, you know, pop fans get really bad about this or whatever. And it's like, you know, look, like I said, I grew up as a kind of a metalhead. So, you know, I was just as bad as anybody, but it was, you know, like I said, at this point, it's like, look, if you don't like it, just stay in your own lane. Just ignore it. Who cares? You know, if something comes on, you don't like it, just don't listen to it. It's pretty simple. You know, just apply that to your life, in fact. Not just music, just whatever. And, you know, just instead, seek out other people. Try to share music you enjoy and see if you can find other people. Because it's amazing how many times there's something that you think you're like, nobody you know likes. And then you're like, blah, blah. Like the one day when I'm on Twitter and this person that I follow, she posts this picture and she's like, I just saw this band. They're so amazing. And I'm like, that's Braided Veins. I saw them in Detroit. They were awesome. And she's like, oh my God, they're one of the best bands I've seen recently. No idea that, you know, and we both, felt like we had kind of seen like a little bit of a secret, you know, type of a thing. And it, you know, it's one of those, like we've, you know, kind of talked back and forth about bands ever since then. You know what I mean? Like that's all it is. It's just one of those deals. And again, if you see stuff you don't like, just ignore it. It's pretty easy.
Move past it.
There's enough trolls on the internet. They don't, their population isn't dying off. They don't need help.
Very true.
They somehow keep multiplying.
Yeah, I know. It's, So I think that we were kind of going to talk about like music therapy, and I think we should push that to another episode.
Yes.
I think it was just kind of fun to just talk a little music and.
Yeah, and that's kind of I think that's absolutely a great idea.
Because that's a little more serious. This is a little more.
Yeah, we're kind of having a fun episode.
Mm-hmm.
Not that every episode isn't fabulous and fun.
Yeah, there was that one time.
Okay.
No.
That one time at band camp. No. Anyways. I see the furrow brow. What was that about?
I don't know. It just does that.
All right. Fair enough. All right.
I was trying to think if there was anything else I wanted to say. I can't think of anything.
Okay. I guess with that, because I know we're approaching our hour mark. In fact, we probably blew our hour mark out of the water.
Yep.
So with that, if you want to continue the conversation with me, you can reach out to me on the Twitters at Jen's Crazy Life. That's Jen with a G. You can also reach us via email at the Crazy Life Podcast at Outlook.com or our website at crazylifepodcast.weebly.com. And you, Heno, how can they reach you?
You can get me on Twitter at Ida Heno, and you can find me on Facebook at Heno Heiter. Look me up there, and or just find us at our new Crazy Life page, Crazy Life Podcast on Facebook. Woo!
Yep. That's right. Again, the link to that is facebook.com/group/Crazy Life Podcast. I'm sorry that link is not shorter, but silly other people had to take the names that were shorter. So I tried a variety of things, but Facebook was like, nope. So, yeah, whatever.
Silly Facebook.
Yeah, or, just find one of us on Facebook or Twitter or something, and I can just, fling the link at you. So, also, you can now find us if you happen to use Google Play Music. Our podcast is now also available on there. And the link will be available in the show notes. The other podcast I'm on, Salty Language, is also available on there. So, you can check them both out. Man, now I got to remember all the things. You can find the show's other Twitter account at the Crazy Life Pod on Twitter. You can find my other podcast, Salty Language, at salty_language or at saltylanguage.com. Oh man, I should have written all this stuff down. I am blanking right now. So the two medicines that I started recently, I'm having this kind of like all this energy, but the other one is a new statin drug, and I'm kind of finding that I'm blanking a lot. That's pretty. Nice. That's pretty fun. Oh, shoot. I forgot the other stuff I usually say there, link-wise. Oh, we're part of the Tangent Bound Network and the Wicked Radio Network, but you knew that because you listened to the intro, because you're good boys and girls, and you wanted to hear Heno's awesome song at the beginning. Mm-hmm. So, and you can also hear more of Heno's awesome intro songs and such over at SoundCloud if you search for Monkey Tongue Productions. Mm-hmm. And maybe some Easter eggs that are hidden in there. There's no Easter eggs. Or are there?
Dun, dun, dun.
Whatever. All right. Are there any links I'm forgetting? Because I seriously can't remember. I'm blanking big time right now.
What is your links?
Oh, yeah. You can find me on Twitter at Stunami. I'm a terrible follow. And I think that's about it. Other than that, I'll just tell you that we're not professionals of any kind. Like, none of us get paid for anything. No, we're not doctors.
Rightly so.
We're not
just kidding.
Doctors, therapists, lawyers, pincushions, or anything of the ilk. So please don't mistake this podcast for therapy or professional help. If you need those things, please seek them out and get a game plan. That way you too can forget things and have manic episodes such as I am. No, I'm kidding. But if you need help, please seek it out in all seriousness. Because it's much better than waiting for 25-ish years before you get help. That's just a bad idea. Mm-hmm. So please do that. And if you're feeling suicidal, over on the Facebook page, actually, I wanted to mention this in our group. There's a document that has, as of right now, I've put a bunch of, there's phone numbers, there's text lines, and there's websites, that if you're looking for help, that you can find on there, as well as obviously, I actually even put, call 911 on there because, that's obviously an option. But if you're feeling suicidal, please, get a hold of the suicide hotline prevention, suicide prevention hotline, or text 741-741, for the, suicide crisis text line, I believe it's called. Man, I'm just buggering this all up. And also, or like I said, get a hold of someone that's in your support system, have them take you to a hospital if you can, or just call 911, tell them you're having a mental health emergency. And, the biggest key is just please don't be alone. Because that's exactly what the mental illness wants. That is exactly what depression wants, is for you to be alone, because that's when it has all the power. So please don't be alone. Please don't kill yourself. And please get help.
Absolutely. With that, everybody have a great week. I can't even talk.
Have a great week.
Have a great week, and keep breathing.